Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot at what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. Happy first of the month, and on the first day of each month, we review the book of the month. In order to be considered for book of the month, a book has to meet a very simple criteria. It has to be impactful enough that it will either change your life or your perspective on the world. Now, whether it does or not, of course, is up to you. If you consume it as a piece of entertainment, well, you're missing the point. But if you internalize it, make it part of you, you have a chance at real transformation. The book this month is absolutely worthy of Book of the Month. It's a great book. We're reviewing the book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Thank you to Todd Sulsinger for recommending it. The author, Ben Horowitz, is the co-founder of Andreessen Horowitz, one of Silicon Valley's most respected venture capital firms. He's a very experienced entrepreneur along with Marc Andreesen. In this book, he offers essential advice on building and running a startup. Practical wisdom for managing some of the toughest problems that business schools never cover. Ben and Marc worked together in the early days at Netscape. They were truly among the founders of the modern-day internet. While many people talk about how great it is to start a business, very few are honest about how difficult it is to run one. Ben Horowitz analyzes the problems that confront leaders every day, sharing the insights he's gained developing, managing, selling, buying, investing in, and supervising technology companies. He's one of the few people that truly speaks to the unspoken issues that entrepreneurs deal with. I felt like he was inside my head as I was reading the book. Most business books glorify the entrepreneurial process. If the book is retrospective, there's a good chance there's revisionist history, but Ben's book is strikingly refreshing. It's very honest. See, the hard thing about business isn't setting a big, hairy, audacious goal. The hard thing is laying people off when you miss the goal. The hard thing isn't hiring great people. The hard thing is when those great people develop a sense of entitlement and start demanding unreasonable things. The hard thing is not setting up an org chart. It's getting people to communicate within the organization you just designed. Dreaming big isn't hard. The hard thing is waking up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat when the dream turns into a nightmare. And this book deals with those problems. They attempt to provide a recipe for the challenges that have no recipes. There is no recipe for really complicated, dynamic situations. There's no recipe for leading a group of people out of trouble. And the advice from many board members often is to import adult supervision. That's it. Go get a big company executive to bring you some order in your startup. Well, the most important thing to understand is that the job of a big company executive is very different from that of a small company executive. See, when Ben was managing thousands of people at Hewlett-Packard after the sale of his company Opsware, there was an incredible number of incoming demands on his time. And that mirrors my own experience when I was at Nortel. Everyone wanted a piece of me. Suppliers and startups wanted to sell themselves. People in the organization needed approvals. Other departments needed help. Customers wanted attention, and on and on. In a big company, most of the work is handling that incoming. In fact, most skilled big company executives will tell you that their job is to be interrupted. And if you've got more than 3 initiatives a quarter, you're doing way too much. But in a startup, unless you're making things happen, nothing happens. In the early days of a startup, you got to be making multiple initiatives a day or the company's going to stand still. There's no inertia that's putting the company in motion, and without massive input from you and from the team, the company's going to stay at rest. In Ben's book, he talks about creating systems and some of the unintended consequences. See, big company executives are very good at using systems and structures, but they're not very good at creating it. In a startup company, you're starting from a blank sheet of paper. You got to create structure from nothing. In many cases, Ben got what he asked for, but not necessarily what he wanted. In one example, the author managed a team to a set of numbers that didn't fully capture what he wanted. He wanted a great product that customers would love with high quality and on time, in that order. But unfortunately, the metrics he set didn't capture those priorities. At the basic level, metrics are incentives. By measuring quality, features, and schedule, discussing them at every staff meeting, people become focused intently on the numbers, to the exclusion of some of the other goals. The metrics didn't fully describe the real goals and distracted the team as a result. Managing strictly by numbers is a bit like doing a paint by numbers. By managing the organization as if it was a black box, some of the divisions at Hewlett-Packard optimized the present at the expense of downstream competitiveness. The company rewarded managers for achieving short-term objectives in a manner that was bad for the long-term health of the company. In fact, when I was at Nortel, I experienced that when Paul Stern was our CEO. See, as a leader, everything you do and everything you say is a cue. There are many ways for leaders to be misinterpreted. To get it right, you got to recognize that any time you measure you're automatically creating a set of employee-driven behaviors. And once you determine the result you want, you need to test the description of the results against the behaviors, make sure that the description is going to create what you want. Otherwise, the side effects are going to be worse than the situation you were trying to fix. Ironically, one of the first things you'll learn when you run an engineering organization is that a good quality assurance team is essential, but by itself cannot give you a high-quality product. All it can do is tell you when the development team builds a low-quality product, but you still need it. There's so many powerful lessons taught through real-life stories. And from my time in Silicon Valley, I know some of the people mentioned in the book. It was a little bit like a trip through memory lane. Because I know some of the people, the book was not an abstract academic piece of work. It was grounded in real life, boots on the ground, blocking and tackling. And as I was reading the book, I was present to the notion that Ben was talking about principles, making sure the tactics implemented in the business don't violate those principles. When you violate principles with tactics, you often pay a heavy price. So definitely go out and get a copy of The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. As you think about that, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.